When the outdated tactics get left behind, it's time we stop. Marketers look around when your ranking's going down. The Jim and Ann Show, the Jim and Ann Show. So I'm Jim.
I'm Ann.
And Ann, we just did another video on it, and it gave me a really interesting idea where you were talking about how you were looking over a client's website and you saw that the blog had pages that were ranking for phrases or words that could be in the conversion funnel, and that a lot of times clients they have this informational content over on the blog and it may rank for commercial phrases or informational phrases, but because it's on the blog, people often leave out the hey, we sell this and you can buy it. And so we're kind of talking about adding some commercial aspects to some blog posts that rank higher and maybe featuring them more and whatnot. But it led me to another thought, which is there's a big problem with blogs on websites. And you had kind of alluded to it at the end of the last video, where over time, blog posts get buried within a website and they lose value because, something you wrote 5 years ago, the only way to reach it is to click on next 20 times or go into the archives and click. But it's like the more you post on a blog, the deeper your older stuff gets and the more it loses power over time via virtue of the blog. So, and a lot of times people, they don't know what to do with the blog. They don't know what to write on the blog. And so they'll write all sorts of stuff. And so sometimes it's interesting news stuff. Sometimes it's just stuff people think is interesting. And sometimes it's some of the right content that should be written for the site, but maybe not on the blog. Maybe it's a bunch of how-tos on something. If you're a plumber and you start doing how-to blog posts along with other posts and whatnot, your great how-to post 3 years from now isn't going to rank for anything because it's way down in the website. And so something to think about too is often good content that can stand the test of time shouldn't be in the blog. It should be somewhere near your product area, or at least, if you sell widgets and over on your blog, you got a bunch of informational stuff about widgets, it shouldn't just sit over there and be on its own little island getting buried while you have your widget page here. Your widget page, even if it sells widgets, your category page, you'd be like, if you have questions about widgets, here are a bunch of links to them. And then they can at least reach out to that buried stuff and in a sense put it much higher in the eyes of Google. And Google says, how well of an expert are you on widgets? All right, well, you got this page, you got these products, but you also have these additional pages that are connected to here. We feel there's a circle of something about widgets here because, you not only have this product page, but you have these informational pages that are all kind of connected here. But a lot of times people's blog is like, it's the second thing. It's the second beast. It's like our website's over here and we're going to do everything to link in here, and the blog, whatever. We were just told we needed fresh content, so throw something over there. And then when someone's like, you need to write something really good, they're like, just throw it on the blog. Like, it doesn't fit in here. And it's like, well, I mean, maybe you can throw it on the blog, but you can't just let this stuff get buried over years. Like, you got to connect it in here. This stuff has to connect to it. Maybe something shouldn't get buried in the blog. It should be like an educational folder about widgets and not on the blog, because, and maybe it's, kind of static pages, not dated pages, where here's 20 pages about how-to stuff about widgets. And it's not in the blog area because it's not a blog post. It's a content piece. It's not a dated news thing. It's not your blog audience isn't going to care about, how do you do a whatever with a widget? There's someone with a very specific user intent is going to be searching that. No one that would be hitting your blog and be like, hi, I was actually wondering that this morning. Probably not. This is kind of stuff that you have over here in an area where if someone is looking to buy that product or information about the product, you have it all here. and maybe not in the blog. And there was my little ramble. Ann, you want to add anything to that long ramble?
Absolutely. And there are so many ways to approach that, but it's such a common problem. Like we maybe a year ago had to analyze a huge website. That website had news going back to 1990 something, and it was buried very deep into the website there with barely any internal links. And lots of websites, when you look at those, have that problem without realizing that. And this is very common. And I've seen a lot of cases when it's done well, like when you have a separate section for how-tos and how-tos that and how-tos that, even like within the main navigation by products, here are these products that solve that problem. And right there, how-tos exactly about all those problems, not somewhere in the blog. So the blog usually is a good idea for newsworthy content, for lists, for fun, seasonal things to kind of put your products in the context. And it's fine if it goes down the archive because it's temporary, it's seasonal. But if it's something evergreen, be aware of not letting it get buried in those archives and put it somewhere there where it can be found, and where there is a very definitive way for people to go down that sales funnel and actually buy something. So yeah, this is a very common thing to look at when you analyze a website.
Yeah, the answer isn't always, oh, we need some other content that doesn't fit in with our structure, throw it over on the blog. Don't throw everything over in the blog. Like Ann, you said, it's stuff that, 3 years from now, you're like, yeah, I don't care if that thing ranks anymore. Like, perfect. That's a blog thing. If it's a newsy story, great. But if it's something not a newsy thing that shouldn't be buried and lost in time, you can still put it in the blog, but have some kind of internal linking structure to bypass the way the thing would normally get indexed in Google 20 levels down. I guess you can either create a second area, not the blog, the education center or something.
Mhm.
Or if you're still going to put it on the blog, at least have, those links so that on the bottom of your money pages, and here's information, link those things together as well. Have that be part of, in a sense, what Google's looking at when they're like, are you the expert on widgets? And, they're going to look at a lot of things, but part of it is, what's kind of what are your pages linking to? What is the content about? And if they see a tight circle of links around your products and these informational pages, they all kind of link together, or at least all the informational pages are linking together, and your top pages here are also linking out to that trusted informational stuff. And it was like, yeah, you're kind of an expert at this topic. You have commercial pages, but you also have these informational pages, and we see that it's all kind of linking in a circle here, and we get that.
Yeah, and it's one way, it's one great way to set up that sales funnel if you link from those informational pages back to those products as well. So here's your people reading about that, wondering what those links are, and actually buying something from you.
It's interesting because, not that long ago, I had to go through someone's blog, and basically, they had categories on the blog, but the categories weren't quite correct. And I ended up kind of recategorizing their blog based on their important categories in e-commerce. So it's kind of like their blog was weird bloggy categories. They had like 10 main pages categories of things they sold. And so I kind of went through the blog and said, what is the stuff you have about topic one? And kind of made a list of those posts, and kind of went through and made all those lists of stuff. And kind of, I looked like at the stuff, and they're like, is this stuff valuable that they wrote about this topic? And a lot of it was, some wasn't, some was just weird fluff or whatever. But the stuff that I'm like, this is good. Like, all right, let's collect these links together. You wrote about this topic on, these 7 blog posts, that are worthy. Let's kind of put that into a little group of like these 7 blog posts on your product page or your category page for that thing should have links to these 7. These 7 should all link to each other. Ideally, you want to even build out an expert area. Like, what are the questions that people are asking for? Maybe you guessed on your blog and you guessed some of it right, but with some keyword research, but actually the tool will be released in a few weeks when you're watching this. will help to find, what are people asking about that topic, so that you can kind of answer that stuff about that topic. So it was like, yeah, you have this, newsy content, you've got this expert content, you have commercial pages, you have these informational pages. In a perfect world, you have stuff that has links to in that circle, but I'm getting too above here. But yeah, study the blog and think about how your blog is set up, and if you wrote cool stuff about your products within the blog, maybe pull them out, or I shouldn't say pull them out, but like grab the links to the cool stuff on the blog that you wrote about this topic. On that topic, your money pages of that site, kind of add those links on the bottom. Like, here's some really good stuff about this if you have questions, or stuff that we wrote about it. So Google kind of sees commercial page, and this informational page all around this topic, for these informational pages all kind of linked together, and they smile and you rank higher.
Look around when your rankings go